Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about the Texas fire alarm rules. Last week we talked a lot about different code requirements that we're under as fire alarm installation techs. One of them that I mentioned was the Texas fire alarm rules and regulations. And then last week we dug more into the NFPA 72, which is the National Fire Alarm Signaling Code. So this week I'm going to follow that up by digging into those other rules that I mentioned that are specific to Texas. Um, the first thing we're going to talk about is requirements of companies. This is not something that Pyrotex requires. This is something that the state of Texas requires of all companies, including Pyrotex. The first thing is you have to register. You have to get your certificate of registration, which is your ACR. You can find Pyrotex's as like in the first 4 pages of every fire alarm submittal we do. Our ACR number is 3346. That's also present on all of the installation service, yellow tags, red tags that we install. Our ACR number is printed on those as well. I believe you have to know the ACR number for the FML 009s that we have to fill out at the end of every job. Another requirement that the state has is every company has to have at least one individual employed with an FAL or APS license. And I'll get over what those license types are a little bit later. So it's not just anyone can go open up a fire alarm company. So you can't just get an electrical contractor that just decides, you know what, today I'm going to open up a fire alarm division. They have to actually have someone that is licensed on their payroll somewhere within the company for them to do that. And then the last thing I have on here is not something that we really need to know a lot as installation techs and out in the field, but you do have to know these numbers for the fire alarm license test. And that's your liability insurance numbers, your $100,000 and that $300,000 that you see there. So I have those on there. I also sent y'all in the invite to this meeting. I sent y'all a PDF copy of the Texas rules and regulations, which was actually most recently updated September of 2019. The updates and changes there weren't very many. They changed things like from where they had National Institute for Certification Engineering Technology spelled out real long like that. They added the abbreviation NICET to it, things like that. They didn't make humongous policy changes or change anything super dramatically. Everything I saw was very minor like that. But now I sent that out so everyone has the latest and greatest copy. And so you're going to find all the insurance information you need to know for the test in there. Another really important thing you're going to find in there that you need to know for the test is the different code years of adopted standards that the state has adopted, because every time you're filling out an FML 009 on a job site, all these ones I have on this screen here, you need to know all of these. These are the current years that Texas is using of those code editions. The NFPA puts out new code year editions every 3 years. So Texas has 2013 adopted, but NFPA has released 2016 and 2019 editions of the NFPA 72. But Texas hasn't adopted those. We're still under 2013. If you look at the NFPA 101, IBC, and IFC, you'll see all of those have the little asterisk star thing beside the number. That's because in the book, Texas has those adopted as a minimum. So any local county jurisdiction can have 2012 or newer edition of NFPA 101, or for the IBC and IFC, they can have 2003 or newer. So these I have listed specifically because they're the ones you have to know when you're filling out that paperwork at the end of the job. If you see I have the note up there, go to pages 35 and 36 in that PDF that I sent y'all, and you'll see all the other codes and standards they have adopted. For our normal day-to-day job, we don't need to keep track of all those other information. I put the stuff that we need for our day-to-day stuff. But if you're going for your FAL license, you have to know all those others as well. There are tons and tons of questions about, if you had a question about this type of sprinkler system, which code book would you go to? It's kind of ridiculous that they make you know that for the fire alarm license, but whatever, it's what the state fire marshal office says we have to have. So it's what we have to do. So I'm putting those, quick reference in there. It's pages 35 and 36. You'll find those. And moving on, we have the different license types. Again, I put which page to see in there. That's page 38 in that PDF, because there are more than just these two license types. I put these two in here because they're the only two that are applicable for pyrotech specifically. But there are there's several different residential ones, and there's one about a fire alarm instructor, which ties into more residential stuff than commercial stuff. The FAL license is the license that all of our technicians have if they're a licensed technician. It's the one that we encourage everyone in the company to try to go get. And you can see the list I have there of all the different things that license allows you to do. And then the one below it is the fire alarm planning superintendent license. It's the design license. It's exactly the exact same thing. That's great. I'm smart. It does everything the FAL license allows you to do, except it adds planning to it. So this allows me to, I have the APS license since I'm the designer. It allows me to stamp all the plans that we do so that we can submit them to fire marshals. Mike McSwain also has his APS license, and I believe we're the only two in the company with an APS license. And that's really all we need. If you wanted to ever go for the APS license, I recommend getting your FAL first, so that way you can keep working and you can do everything else, and then start working on going through the NICET process, because you have to pass the NICET level 3 stuff to get your APS license in Texas. And that takes us right into the next point here, and that's how to get licensed. So the biggest part of getting licensed is going to be taking the tests. And so there are 3 organizations that do fire alarm licensing tests. There's the State Fire Marshal's Office. There's a company called ESA, which is the Electronic Security Association. And then there's NICET. And like I said, NICET is the one you have to go through to get to the APS license. The FAL, I think the easiest way is through the State Fire Marshal's Office. You can see I have a little note there. They're currently contracted with a company called PSI to administer. PSI administers the test on computer-based stuff. They have some locations locally here in Houston. You used to have to drive all the way to Austin to go take your test. That was actually administered directly by the state fire marshals. So luckily they don't do that anymore. When they contracted with this company, they made tons of remote sites available, and that's significantly more convenient. Some other things you have to go through, one of which is the background check, which, I mean, that's just in the paperwork that you fill out, you send it in. And that's a case-by-case thing. I'll leave background checks alone. Fingerprinting, all around Houston, there's locations of a thing called Identigo, and it's digital fingerprint scanning. Pyrotex has an account with them. Get with the ladies at the office, and they'll help you set up an appointment if you need to go get your fingerprints done to either renew your license or get your license for the first time. And then there's also some associated fees that you have to pay, but Pyrotex thankfully covers this for all of our employees. So like I said, the main thing you have to worry about is the testing. And so hopefully going through this today gives you some ideas of some stuff you need to study. We've already talked about, you need to know the different types of licenses, you need to know the different code editions and years, and you need to know that insurance information. And then something else you need to know that we should know for installation purposes and for testing purpose. The state of Texas actually has some different installation inspections they want us to perform ourselves on every single job, that like the fire marshal doesn't do, your general contractor, your architect's not going to do this. These are just 3 different installation or inspections they want you to do throughout the course of the installation. And there's actually some paperwork in here that the state wants you to fill out. I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually fill it out. The first inspection is at the end of backbox installation, but before you install cables. And so this is saying it wants you to, walk around, check all your raceways, check your boxes, make sure everything's mounted at the right heights, make sure it's got all the right spacing, all the different code compliant things. Make sure all your back box rough-in conduit stuff is good. Then you can put cable in it, because they don't want you putting cable in bad conduit, obviously. And then at the end of cable installation, before your device installation, we've actually talked quite a bit about this a couple months ago, using meters to check your circuits. And so that'll be a big part of checking your cable installation, is metering out all your circuits before you start putting devices on it. And then you also need to go check it visually, make sure like sheetrock guys didn't pinch it, or it's not up against sharp objects from your mechanical contractors, not resting on sprinkler pipes, etc. We've talked about that one particularly quite a bit. And then another time at the end of device installation, before activating the system. And this would include everything from like making sure your devices are flush against things they should be, like flush against the wall or flush against your ceiling tiles without lifting the ceiling tiles up. Wall-mounted devices are true and level. Your smoke detectors and stuff aren't within 3 feet of air ducts. So this is a visual inspection, making sure everything's just installed correctly. And again, I put in all caps, these are all inspections during construction. And so these are 3 that they list specifically. And I do remember there being something about this in the test, and I've checked out some practice tests, and all the practice tests include several questions about this. So I wanted to make sure this was included, just to make sure everyone's familiar with it. And this is all in addition to the final testing that the NFPA 72 describes, the commissioning testing. That's a lot what we do with fire marshals and stuff. And then we're going to get into the topic where we're getting closer to the thing I was wrong about. We're going to talk about installation labels. These are the stickers, tags that we put in panels. So the first one is the installation label. This is the white with black lettering that you put the APS and all that information on. And you do this with a new panel. Anytime you put a new system in, that's the only time you use this sticker. It goes inside the panel. It has to be somewhere that you can get to, somewhere readable. We prefer the inside of the door. And when you're doing a brand new install, you cannot, like it's actually written in the rules, you must not put a yellow or red label on it as well. Because they're saying if you're putting a new system and you need to put it into code, you need to put it in functioning, you can't walk away from a system that you slap together and it's not up to code and it doesn't work. They're saying you can't do that. So can't use a yellow or red tag when you're putting an installation sticker in, which I don't think we've had a problem with that, but that's something specific they had listed. So in case it's on the test, there's your information. The next thing is the other white sticker we have. These are service labels. They can be attached to the inside or the outside of the panel. If the service is to correct a yellow or red tag, you actually remove the red or yellow tag. And right there, there's a typo. It says, and not the color. That's supposed to be note, N-O-T-E, not N-O-T. So you note the color and the date of the red or yellow tag that you removed on your service sticker. And at the bottom of the service sticker, there's a little checkbox for the yellow tag or red tag and a little line for you to write the date of that tag on it. So you'll do that there. Service stickers have to remain for 2 years. And then after 2 years, it can be removed. And then this last dot is something that's common practice. I didn't know it was actually a rule. So that was something I learned going through this, was that it was a rule. I always did this anyways, and everyone I've always seen has always done this. But these service labels, they must have approximately a 1/2 inch of adhesive on the back at the top to place new service tags over the old tags. So you can flip through the tags and you can still read the previous services that have been done before that one. Like I said, I just didn't know that was a rule, so I put that in there because I thought that was interesting that that's actually a rule. That's not just something we all do. So then we're going to go on to the blue tags. So these are blue with black lettering. These are for your initial test, like you do with the fire marshal, and then they're also for all the annual inspections. And then if any service or maintenance was performed during a test or inspection, then you put this blue tag on there saying that you did the test or inspection, but you also attach one of those white service stickers saying what the service you did during that test was. And then for new installations, only apply inspection test label after the acceptance test has been passed from the AHJ. That's actually written in the fire alarm rule PDF that I sent you, and I downloaded that straight from the state fire marshal's office website. In case you're wondering where to get that, you just look up Texas Department of Insurance and you go to their state fire marshal page, and it's on that page. But yeah, so that it was very specific that blue tag does not go on the panel till after the AHJ has tested and accepted and approved and everything. But that white install tag can actually go on before that test, although I find it easier just to do both tags at once. This one must remain on the panel for 5 years. Now that service tag was 2 years, this is 5 years. That's another thing I remember being on the fire alarm license test. And then right here, this is the thing I was wrong about a few weeks ago when I believe it was Ramsey came up with the great question of when do you use yellow labels and when do you use red labels? And I was going off memory, and it's been a little while since I've had to mess with this. So I actually gave the wrong answer in that. So I'm not going to say what the wrong answer was just because I don't want to confuse people. Instead, I'm going to clear the air by only saying the right answer right now. So yellow labels is if a system does not comply with the applicable codes or standards, or it's not being tested and maintained to those standards. And by standards, it means codes. So if you're walking around and you see, hey, they got a lot of smoke detectors that are right next to the air vent. Well, that's not up to code. You got to move those at least 3 feet from the air vent. Or, hey, your pool stations are installed at the wrong heights. I see that a lot in restaurants with little lease spaces. I don't know why those have such a problem, but you go somewhere, there's a deli near my house that I can think of that it has a pull station at one door that's like 2 feet off the ground, and there's another one that is at like eye level for me, and I'm 6 foot, so that's a problem. But yeah, things like that would be yellow labels. And then if you do attach a yellow tag, then you have to notify in writing to 3 different places. You have to send it to the property owner and to the occupant. So for instance, if it's a lease space, there has to be a letter that goes out to the owner of the building and to whoever is leasing that space. And then you also have to send a letter to the AHJ, which most of the time is the local fire marshal. Before you actually put a yellow tag on something, if you see something that you think is worthy of a yellow tag or a red tag, make sure you call Colin Crawford first, because if you're doing anything with yellow or red tags, it should be service related. Call him, make sure he knows, see how he wants to handle it. Because if it is something like you just got a couple smoke detectors that are right next to the air vents, he may want you to grab a ladder, pop your head above the tile and see if you can just move it over real quick. Customer service kind of thing. Be nice to our customer. If we don't have to involve the fire marshal in something that simple, then let's avoid involving the fire marshal. So call him, see how he wants to handle things like red and yellow labels. And then the last thing I have to talk about before we open it up for questions is is red labels. These are the red with black lettering. What these are for, these are if anything at all is wrong. If it's not working, if there's a fault, whether it's a panel, the entire system, just a single device, anything at all is bad, including a DACT fault, because that was a question that came up before. DACT faults will be red labels. And then it has the same notification process as the yellow labels, including the property owner, the occupant, and the AHJ, all in writing. And those notifications for the yellow and red labels, I remember those being on the fire alarm license test as well. So yeah, those are the kind of the highlights of the Texas fire alarm rules and regulations. There's a lot more in the book. It's like a 68 or 70 page document, something like that. So, I mean, I got it down to 11 slides because I was trying to think of the things that would be most applicable to us and kind of help give people studying for a test a direction to go in. This, by all means, is not everything, but I think it's a pretty functional understanding of what's going on. And so, for those of you who have already done your licensing testing and maybe have been doing this a little while, maybe this was a refresher for you. And then some of the newer guys, a lot of the helpers who may not have been around as much, hopefully y'all learned something from this. Yeah, I'll be quiet now and let people ask questions.
Good afternoon.
Hey Ramsey, how's it going?
It's going on the red and yellow labels when you have to put it in writing for the building owner, the occupant, and the fire marshal. We write those up and give it to them and send it in, or is it typed up and emailed or somewhat and then sent out?
I see Colin Crawford's in our meeting. Colin, can you jump in and answer how you like to handle that?
How I'd like to handle it is you notify me and then you take control by sending your own form in to the fire marshal's office. Most of y'all that have a license have an email. There's really not a standardized form that you want to see something on our letterhead. I have one I can send out to you, but how often do you put a red or yellow tag on?
Understandable. The other question, and that was a nice answer. The other question is as far as the APS, you were saying that you have to take the NICET level 3. Do you have to take NICET level 1 and 2 first?
So to get the APS, no. But to be NICET level 3 certified, yes. The state fire marshal office only requires the letter that comes from NICET saying that you've passed the test, which they'll send you that test regardless of if you've done 1 or 2. And so I actually kind of shortcutted the system that way. I got my APS a while before I actually got them to approve my level 3 NICET certification, because I went and just kind of took all 3 tests, 1, 2, 3, just back to back to back. And then there's some other background stuff and other requirements that it takes to get to level 3. You can get to level 2 pretty quickly with NICET, but level 3, they start requiring some different professional write-ups and recommendations and stuff. And that part of the paperwork took a while, but you can jump straight to the APS by only taking the level 3.
You still got the answers?
Yes and no.
I'm joking because I know it's not the same test every time.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely not. I could help talk to you about what kind of things you would need to study for if you want to go for the APS. And I might do something about what is the difference between NICET and the fire alarm license test and stuff. That might be one of our discussions sometime in the future, just because I feel like that might be something people are curious about. But yeah, if someone is interested in going for NICET stuff, definitely hit me up. I'll send you some resources I have for what kind of material you need and study. You can also get all that information off the NICET website, but I'll try to help you out by sending it to you instead of making you dig for it on their website.
Level 1, you'll be able to pass blindfolded.
Yeah, level 1 is mostly like first aid safety type of stuff. Level 2 is a lot of the technician stuff that we've actually been talking about in here. There's a lot of meter use and there's a lot of how to install things and, the code required distances between devices and mounting heights, all that kind of stuff. A lot of troubleshooting stuff. That's all level 2. Level 3 gets, there's a lot more administrative management level kind of things, how to deal with problems on job sites and how to coordinate with other contractors and several other things. All right. Does anyone else have any questions?
Stay safe, guys.
Okay, well, if that's it, y'all are free to go. Thank you for being here. Remember to sign into the chat if you haven't already.